Right. So I wanted to do something a little bit different for you guys, and that is go over the basics of not even the basics, but like the important parts of email marketing. And the reason why is this is something that I've wanted to do for a while because I see a lot of people who kind of have a hard time when it comes to building out their list. They have a hard time when it comes to um, building out like all the different important parts of their opt-in form. They have a hard time with marketing to their list. So I wanted to talk about all of the seven, and there's a lot more because initially I started with seven. And then going into it this morning, I started with like seven starting last week. And then up until this morning, you'll see that there's a lot more on here, right? So I'm thinking about all of the different things. I'm going back, I'm looking at our different opt-in forms. I'm looking at all of the elements that we test and the things that we share. And I want it to come in and share this stuff with you so that hopefully, it puts you like light years ahead of everyone else. And it gets you to the point where you actually start. Um, as I mentioned on the last Monday morning meetup, email marketing and just building out a list in general is something that took me much longer than it should have. And it's probably the same for many of you as well. I'm gonna let Robert Pera in here. It's probably the same. So I heard about the importance of building out a list for many people, many credible people. I saw how it helped a lot of people, but for some reason, it was still this thing in my head that seemed like it was just so much more difficult to do than it actually was, right? And this was way back then when I'm first starting out. So how many people feel like that? Like, do you feel like this is something where I really didn't understand the importance of it? I also didn't understand. Well, no, I'm gonna take that back. I did understand the importance of it, but I let the things that were going on in my head kind of prevent me from getting to it. Um, I also didn't put enough time into studying how to put things in place. And then once I made that commitment to do so, it kind of totally flipped. I went from like dreading doing it to like loving doing it and kind of being addicted to doing it and all the things that go into it because I saw how powerful it is. And really I started to look at it as the more people that I get on my email list, the bigger my pay raise gets. Right. So that's how I started to look at it. I looked at it as the more people that got on my email list, the bigger my pay raise got, right? Um, the more offers that I made available, right? The more opportunities I had to go in and serve people who really needed help. As a matter of fact, you guys last week, over the last couple of days, actually, you might have seen where I promoted three different webinars, so three different trainings. And I kind of bombarded you guys with emails. Sorry about that. I kind of apologized in the last email that went out yesterday for that. But it reminded me that we can always have something to offer our list that they would be interested in, right? So even if we don't think that they would be interested in it, we could always have something that we can position to them, whether we're selling a fiction book, a nonfiction book, a course, a coaching it doesn't matter what it is. You could be selling massages, right? You'll always have something that you can present to your list, and a portion of those individuals would be really interested in it. All right. So yesterday and over the last couple of days for the last week, one of the offers that I made available was it's basically a traffic generation system by a good friend of mine, Armin Moore. And many of you guys might have heard of Armin because he's like one of the OGs of internet marketing. He's like one of the guys who was there at the very beginning when this thing started. So I'm lucky enough to have known Armin for about 20 years. Him and I live very close together, so we get together. His daughter and my daughter, Summer, they have a little relationship there too. So he had this program, it's a traffic generation program. And in my head, I'm like, I don't know, man. I think that this thing is a little bit too technical when I saw it, right? I'm thinking it's a little bit too technical. I'm thinking the people that are on my list may not get it. I'm thinking they may not understand the importance of this. They may not have a need for learning how to generate traffic, learning how to market. And I was totally wrong, right? So I went in and positioned it, and the webinar did extremely well. We had a lot of people who came in and who got it, right? So sometimes we'll put our own fears. I'm not a very technical person, right? Don't like to get down and to the technicalities of things. So we'll put our own fears on our audience, and we have no idea until we put things out there, right? So I want you to remember that. So sometimes you have to ask yourself, like, am I projecting my own fears on my audience when it comes to list building, when it comes to what it is that I'm presenting to them? Am I listening to the wrong person? Right? I learned a long time ago that there's a lot of experts that are out there that are not really doing much. And that's not to take anything away from them, but you'll see what it, especially now with social media. Everyone that has a YouTube channel or everyone that has an Instagram, profile, they can go in and they can give you the XYZs of doing just about anything. And then you go in and you look and you're like, well, how much of this have you actually done yourself? Right? And to what degree? And then you look at that, you go underneath the hood and you see that they probably learned it from someone else who hasn't done it much, and then they're learning that from someone else. So it becomes this repeated cycle, right? So I'm going to give you these things, and you should set a goal to go in and put this in place by the end of this week. And only you know the amount of time that you'll have. You'll know if you have a Saturday to go in and work on this or what your Friday looks like, right? So, but you have to write this down. You got to put a date on it. And we're going to talk about measuring too, because measuring is super important when it comes to just email list building, marketing, and everything. But you have to put a date on it and you have to give yourself a deadline. When I first started to learn a lot of this stuff, and at that time, my household was extremely hectic. And what I mean by that was my health was nowhere near where it is now. So I used to get sick a lot. I used to get sick a lot, right? Um, and then used to listen to myself a lot, right? Sometimes we listen to our bodies. So I would be in a hospital a lot. We had four very young kids, and our kids were just hyperactive with things. I mean, ice skating and on the football team and the basketball team and cheerleading and um you just name it, right? They were just doing everything. So we're chauffeuring them around and school with them and then coming home and helping them with their homework and doctor's appointments and just everything. And then I had also moved my mom from Connecticut to North Carolina around that same time. Um, or no, I hadn't moved her down there at that time. She was coming back and forth. So every once in a while, I was working on getting her down. So every once in a while, she would come down. So I was spending time with my mom, and then of course my wife and our relationship. So I was super, super, super busy. But I always knew that there were things in the business that if I didn't learn, if I didn't say, look, regardless of how busy I am, if I don't find the 10 minutes to 15 minutes to hour, whatever's needed, those increments to do this, it's never going to happen, right? It's never going to happen. Or even if it wasn't me that was doing it, if I didn't take like the Dan Sullivan approach, to who I wasn't aware of at the time, which is who, not how. It's not how you do it, but it's who can I get to do this for me, right? If I didn't take one of those approaches, then it's never going to happen. So one of the things that I would do at that time was I would go in, and again, household super busy, right? Four kids all in the house, young, my wife, and I would listen. I would be like, listen, guys, all right, so today is the Saturday, and I just need 90 minutes. Like I need 90 minutes of uninterrupted time. No one coming into the office. No one saying, "Hey, Dad, watch me spin on my head." No one saying, "Dad, come outside in the backyard and throw a football with me." Right? My wife not coming in and saying, "Hey, can you go in and hang this flower pot or whatever?" Give me 90 minutes. Or sometimes it would be 5 hours. Give me 5 hours. And sometimes it would be, give me this day. Right? Well, it was never a day because I was never able to get that much time. But whatever that increment was, and I'm like, because I'm working on something that's going to benefit the family. And oftentimes when I'm having those conversations, I also had to have those conversations with myself, right? I'm saying, hey, Ty, look, if you don't buckle down, and that's when I started to really work on my self-discipline and my confidence, because both of those things go into what I'm going to share with you. And it may not make sense now, but it will as I go into it, right? So I said, if you don't buckle down and really start to like just put on blinders and get rid of a shiny object syndrome, because I started to like I was like many of you guys where everything looked good. I was not able to focus on any one thing. And if you're not able to focus on any one thing, then it's impossible for you to build out a business in the way that you want to build it. Right? It's impossible because every single one of these things is going to take you to have, it's going to take you having the discipline, number one, the discipline to stay up a little bit later, the discipline to get up a little bit earlier, maybe, right? The discipline to to just take your freaking phone and put it in another room if you have to. The discipline to, remove Instagram or X or Facebook, whichever is your favorite platform, YouTube, from your phone, right? So that you can literally go in here and do what it is that you need to do. So that's the first thing. So developing the discipline. If you work on your discipline, you can beat yourself and you can beat almost everyone else because most people don't have the discipline that's required. Right. So at that time, I also started to develop something that I still use to this day, and that is the mantra of the way you do anything is the way you do everything. So the way you do anything is the way you do everything. So if I could come in here and I started to really test my discipline muscle on a bunch of different things, right? So what is it that I'm eating and what is it that I'm drinking and what is it that I'm, working on? Because I knew that if I could go in and work on my discipline with these smaller things, it helps me with the bigger things. And if I could work on my discipline with the bigger things, it would help me with the smaller things. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. Working on your discipline is something that no one talks about when it comes to email list building. No one at all. But it requires a certain level of discipline. It requires a certain level of discipline to build out your opt-in forms. It requires a certain level of discipline to um, make sure that you're checking your stats. It requires a certain level of discipline to run split tests, which every single person should be doing. I'll be talking about that. It requires a certain level of discipline to send emails out without getting emotionally attached to it. It requires a certain level of discipline to see that you're going to have unsubscribes. You could be giving away gold bars, like literally 24 karat gold bars, and people will unsubscribe, right? And it's not because it has anything to do with you, but it's because people sometimes, maybe they have other things that are going on, or maybe they may not even read the email. They may not even read what's in the email, right? They may be distracted. Maybe they don't have their own self-discipline that they're working on, right? So the discipline. But confidence is the other thing that you're gonna need when it comes to this stuff. The confidence to, number one, know that you can do it. The confidence to be able to use me as a guinea pig. You can be like, look, if I can do this, the guy barely made it out of high school. Spelled English 101 twice, right? Stayed back in his sophomore year, um, my junior year, sorry. Stayed back in his junior year, right? Barely. So just use other people sometimes as your motivation and say, look, if this person could do it, I know that I could do it. And that works on your confidence. So you have to be, Napoleon Hill talks about this actually in Think and Grow Rich. He talks about it at the very beginning, where he talks about one of the number one principles of successful individuals is they are consistently working on the confidence, right? And he states it in the sense where it's like, in order to do anything great, which email marketing and list building is great because it's like one of the most important parts of your business. In order to do anything great, you have to have the confidence that you could do it first. And he lists that as number, I think it's like number one or number two on his list of things that are required to do well, right? So confidence is up there. The confidence that you'll display will allow you to go more boldly and do this stuff, right? You'll be able to go in and you'll do it initially. And then what will happen is as you start to get more and more results, that confidence increases. So the confidence will increase in the form of you taking more action, and then those actions get you better results. And because now you got better results, now you're taking even more action. All right. So it makes sense. So the first thing I want to start out with outside of those two things, right? So the discipline and the confidence. So always being aware in all areas of your business, like what's my discipline level at right now? Like, am I really disciplined enough to go in and work on these things? My discipline, my description, what do you call it, Dante? What do you call it? Definition. My definition of discipline is doing a thing that you know you need to do even when you don't feel like doing it. Right. So that's my definition of discipline. So working on your discipline and then working on your confidence as well. Right. And here's a key, here's a secret to building out your confidence and your discipline. Right. But mostly your confidence is doing this stuff whenever you feel like you just feel great. Like you like just really feel at a peak level. So for me, it used to be 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock at night. when I first started to do this stuff. It used to be 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and I was thinking about this. Me and my wife were talking, and we kind of switched. Now she's the one who's more creative at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm the one that's more creative in the morning, right? So I was thinking about that, but it was 1, 2 o'clock because that's when the house kind of was quiet, right? The house would start to get quiet 9, 10, 11, 12, so but now it's early morning for me. So now if you have something that is a challenge for you, you find the time when you're the most like you're just there and you just feel great, right? And then you go in and you maximize as much as that time as possible as you can. If you got a job, many of you guys have jobs and you're doing other things, right? You can use your phone, take notes. This is where you start to think, right? So when I had my job working at Walgreens Pharmacy, um, we would do third shift sometimes. And that was like my creative period again. So I couldn't work, obviously, right? As I'm working at Walgreens. Sometimes we would do third shifts. We would build out a store or something new like that, right? Or it was a promotional shift where holidays would come into play. So we would get certain managers that would work with overnight teams. But what I would do is I would keep this little, it was like a little spiral notepad. You guys remember those things? Right? The little spiral notepad, and I would just keep that in the pen. I would keep the pen on me, and I would keep the notepad in my back pocket. And as I'm there and I'm working and I'm thinking and I'm thinking, I'm thinking and I'm thinking, and there's silence, and sometimes the other guys would be talking and things like that, but I would be, to myself, I'm getting these ideas, and boom, I would write them down. And then I would write them down. And then when I go home, I'm working on, flushing out these ideas. So finding your creative period, finding the period where um, just ideas come to you, right? All right. So the elements that go into building out your list. Don't negate those things, right? Those three things that I gave you, which are finding your creative period and working during that time as much as possible, working on your self-discipline, right? As much as possible on a regular daily basis, and then working on your confidence on a regular daily basis. Because all of those things, like the stuff that we do when it comes to building out digital businesses, that stuff is all of the tactical stuff, right? And that makes up a very small amount of success. It's all the mental work that makes up the majority of success. It's like 90% of the mental work, 80% of the mental work, the stuff that you do up here in your head that has a lot more to do with how successful you'll be with publishing your first book, getting readers, right? Getting the sales, building out whatever it is that you want to do, even stuff like this, right? It's all of the mental. Right? This stuff that I'm about to share with you, this is a very small amount of it. So always remember this, right? It's 90% to even, I would even say like 95% mental. This is the confidence. This is the doing it, the discipline, doing it when you don't feel like doing it, right? Not I do the things that I know I need to do, not just the things that I feel like doing, right? That's all about. It is recognizing your strong points as far as when it's a good time for you to actually go in and work on your business, especially when it comes to the difficult things, right? You got to work on your business whenever you can, but the difficult things there's going to be times when you're more creative than others. And the other thing is, so that's the 99.5% is the mental, right? So this is the mental. And then you got like the 5 to 10%, which is the tactical. All right. So the first thing you do when you start to build out your plans for building up an email list is you're working on a way to get those people to actually give you their name and their email address. We're not talking about traffic during this. We're not talking about how do you get these people to the form. We're talking about how do you build out and everything else. So the first thing is your opt-in form. So your opt-in form is going to be the first thing. And when I look at opt-in forms, I can look at so your opt-in forms. I could look at 100 opt-in forms and maybe see like two of them that are laid out the right way. And I can almost instantly, without knowing the metrics and the numbers and everything else like the opt-in, the conversion rates and that type of stuff. I can almost look at an opt-in form and tell that it's not doing anywhere near what it should be doing as far as the conversions and the opt-ins. And it's because of the things that I'm going to share with you in the next couple of minutes, right? A lot of people get building out their opt-in forms 100% wrong. And this is one of the reason why I said you want to work on the mental first is because when you start to do this stuff, like building out your opt-in forms, this is one of the hardest things for me to get through to people mentally. And what I mean is they want it to look nice, they want it to look pretty, they want to have all of the different colors, all of the different images, and all of the things that are really driving down their conversion rates. Every time I could take someone who has an opt-in form that's got all of this stuff, and then I go in and I give them the way that I lay out my opt-in forms, and my opt-in forms will almost beat theirs like by insane numbers. Right. So all the things that people think they need to have, you see this even in corporations, you see this with a lot of big names, you see this with people that are just starting out because again, it's the system, right? It's the blind following the blind. So someone who's never done it before is following someone who they think has done it before, who's following someone who maybe they hired someone who's never done it before to do it for them, right? Or who's never gotten the numbers right. They've never driven, we've driven millions of people through our opt-in forms, right? So when you're driving a lot of data like that, you get to see what works and what doesn't work. The other thing is I'm just compulsive when it comes to split testing. So you get to see what works and what doesn't work, right? And across different niches and different industries. So it could be fiction, it could be nonfiction, it could be it could just be anything. We've got niches from, the homeschooling niche, we've got romance, we've got mystery, sci-fi, we've got self-improvement niches, we've got gardening niches. We've got niches that deal with relationships and marriages and dating. We've got niches, children's books, just about everything. So the mistake that people will make is, oh, well, Ty, that might work in this area, but it doesn't work for what I'm doing. Biggest mistake ever. Thinking that some of what I'm going to share with you might work in the areas that we're doing it in, but it won't work in your area. All right. So and I've seen where it works in everyone. So the first thing is your headline, right? The very first thing that you should pay the most attention to when it comes to your opt-in forms. It doesn't matter what you're selling. So keep in mind that everything, I don't want to keep saying it. So keep in mind that everything that I'm talking about does not matter if you're selling fiction or nonfiction. Right? This applies to everything. Doesn't matter if you're selling a course, a coaching program, a retreat, a seminar, a webinar, right? The first thing should be you want to have a headline that pulls them in. Like your headline should attract, it should be as wide as possible to attract as many people as possible, right? Your headline should be as wide as possible to attract as many people as possible. Right. So you're thinking about this, and you guys have like AI and chat GTP, so you can literally go in and you could say, hey, look, this is what my course is about, or this is what my book is about, right? Give me a headline. And I was actually doing this last night for an event that we're gonna come up with. But you can actually say, go give me a headline that casts a wide net that will attract as many people as possible for something like this, right? For something like this book or something like this course or this webinar. So your headline is where you should be putting the most amount of effort in first, before anything else, before your pictures, before your sub headline, because this is the thing that's going to attract as many people. Typically, font size, I'll go with like a 27 to 37 font size because this works for both desktop and mobile. So this is something that we've tested a lot too, right? Because now you see more people that are visiting these pages and they're on mobile devices. So you want to make sure that it looks really good on a mobile device as well as on your desktop, right? So your headline is where you put the most amount of attention. You're casting this wide net. And then next after that is going to be your sub headline, right? So your sub headline is where you can get a little bit more granular with it. You can get a little bit more niche, right? So your main headline might be something like, if you love romance readers, I've got a romance story for you that's going to keep you up at night turning pages, until you fall asleep or whatever it is. That might be a little bit corny, but again, it's really wide and it captures as many people as possible. It sparks your attention. Oh yeah, I like romance, right? And then your sub headline can get a little bit more detail, right? Well, I've got a billion, check out this new billionaire romance story that covers XYZ between characters XYZ, right? So this is where you can get a little bit more in this because you capture as many people as possible in your headline. And then those people that are attracted to this, then they'll go in and they'll start reading your subheadline, right? So hopefully that makes sense. After your subheadline, the next thing that you have that makes the most sense and that kind of niches it down a little bit more would be a paragraph. So if you go in, so you've got a paragraph here, all right? You've got your headline. You've got me. Maybe I should draw this out. I'm going to show you guys what this looks like as I talk about these things. So this is my opt-in form here. So here I'm going to have my main headline. My main headline is going to be huge. So I'm going to say 27 to 37, right? It's going to stand out. Here I've got my sub headline. All right, so this is 27 to 37, what we normally start with, right? Before we start testing, because we do test that afterwards. And my sub headline, I start with anywhere between sometimes like an 18 to a 24.5, right? So main headline, sub headline. Doesn't matter what you're selling. Cars, you could be selling cars and this will work, right? And then after that, I've got my paragraph here. Right, so now this is going to be a couple of lines of text, right? So now what's happening is, and let me know if this makes sense to you guys, because now I'll go into it even more. Your headline is casting this wide net because that's the most visible, easiest thing for people to see. This is where they decide yes or no. And the people that decide yes, then they go in and they're starting to look at the subheadline, which again is a little bit more niche. It gets a little bit more granular. It goes into a little bit more detail. Then your paragraph, right? This gets even more detailed. All right. Now, after this, guess what else you have? Who wants to guess? What comes next after this? Right? What comes next after this? There's no right or wrong either. All right. CTA. Your CTA is coming, but not yet. All right. And we're gonna talk about conversion rates too, because you'll be surprised at the conversion rates too. All right. No, so the next thing, right? So what I like to put on next is bullet points. So I have bullet points, and they could be, there's no magic number. I'll have like 5 to 7 bullet points. All right, so 5 to 7 bullet points. And again, this comes after, like I said, we've driven millions of people to our opt-in forms. All right, so the stuff that I'm giving you here is not guessing. It's not, driven a little 100,000 people to a form, stuff like that. It's millions of people to different genres, different niches, different offers over 20 something years. All right. So again, be very careful to what you're seeing out there because there's people that are they've just been doing it for, a year, maybe maybe they've sent 10,000 people. And the difference between sending 10,000 people and millions of people to different offers to thousands of different pages is you start to see where the real data is. Does that make sense? Like, would you would you say that a survey that was presented to 10,000 people versus a survey that was presented to millions of people would yield slightly different results to a degree, right? For the most part, you're going to see results that vary, right? Especially if your survey that only hit 10,000 people is geographically only hitting a certain area. It could be just hitting like the Northeast or the Southeast versus a survey that's hitting millions of people and it's covering the entire US. You're going to see things that are different, right? Right. So that's why when you look at like a lot of the political surveys and things like that, you got to first ask, well, where was the survey conducted and who was it conducted to? What type of people? Was it like a mass amount of different people? because that's when you get the real results. So you got your headline, you got your subheadline, you have your paragraph, you've got your bullet points, right? Your bullet points now work with all of this stuff here, but your bullet points also work with your headline. So remember, I said your headline's job is to cast a wide net, right? Because the people that come into this headline, they see this thing, they're instantly making a decision as to yes or no, this is not for me, or if it is for me. The next easiest thing for them to look at are bullet points. So your bullet points should be pretty concise. Boom, 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 boom. What's happening in your book? What's happening in your course? What are the benefits that they're going to get by reading your book, right? What are the benefits that they're going to get by joining your webinar, right? By joining your mastermind program. So all of this stuff kind of appeals to different audiences. It appeals to the emotional audiences if you use your bullet points and your subheadline and your paragraphs the right way. It appeals to the individuals that are more logical, right? And you can really talk to those logical individuals in your headlines, right? Here's why this is a great decision. Here's why this is a book that, everyone that loves romance should go in and read. And then you can also use these things to talk to people that make decisions based out of fear, based out of scarcity. All right. Here's an example of that. If you're truly going to only let 1,000 people get a free copy of your prequel, then you could say that up here in your subheadline, right? The newest romance novel only available for the first 1,000 people. Go in and grab the prequel now. Fear-based, right? Or you could say it again, you could repeat it again down here. So now after our bullet points, what comes next? Bullet points could be both, Christine. They could be features and benefits. They could be both, right? You could kind of weave them in there too, right? So they could be both. So next, after that, this is when we come in, we have our CTA. All right, so we'll have our CTA. Now, if you wanted to, you could have an image up here if you wanted to. Always test images because it's kind of weird. Images can drive down conversion rates. A lot of times it's like 50-50. So you should always never just throw an image up there and think that the image is going to, like it needs to be there, right? People, what I found is, and this is one of those things where mentally it could be tough kind of processing it. Because if you have a book cover, or if you have a course cover, or you've got a great graphic, like you want to go in and share it on your opt-in form, what I found is that sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes what people want to do is they want to make up in their head what this thing should look like. Does that make sense? Like, let me know if that makes sense. Like, they want to make up in their head, and if you have an image, and sometimes it could be an image of you. So sometimes you'll see on our pages, I might have an image of me, or it might be an image of Willie, or just an image of people in general. Like, we might have an image of different authors, or someone reading one of our books, right? And that image may not work. So we're always testing our images as well. All right. So let me know if that makes sense. So now you've got your CTA. So here's what you're going to have on you in your form right here. This is basically the form. So the first thing you're going to have is your first name. If you want to start and you want to increase your chances of getting as many people as possible to fill out your form, you could only start with your first name or with their first name, right? Not your first name, because you should know your first name, right? So first name and email. That's at the bare minimum right there, right? The bare minimum. If you want to, this will, in most cases, again, it's not set in stone. You should be split testing this, but in most cases, you slightly increase your conversion rates when you just ask for their first name and their email. All right. Now, with every single one of our forms, though, we also ask for phone. Right? So phone, and it's optional, right? So it's 100% optional when it comes to the phone number. So it's totally, and I'll have a little message here that says optional, right? And you can even have a message there that says, um, if you want to get updates by SMS text, right? You can have a message here because in your fields here, you can actually put text in these fields, right? And you can adjust like the transparency of that text and everything else. So your first name, your email at a minimum, and then your phone number if you want. Now, on like I said, on every single one of our forms now, we put our phone number. But if you're just starting out, we request your phone number. If you're just starting out, just start with phase two. The other thing is, if you're asking for their phone number, you also need a consent checkbox. All right, a consent checkbox that should be unchecked. 100%, Christine. So, as I said about the images, leaving it to their imagination can often let them sell themselves. And that's exactly what it does. 100%. That's what it does. So, man, I should have put lotion on. Boy, I'll tell you, when you got this beautiful black skin, sometimes you got to put lotion on because if not, you get ashy. Um, so my wife hates that I don't put lotion on. See, I'm like, look, I'm not 7 years old anymore, so you don't have to chase me around with the lotion. But apparently she does. So you have to have a consent form. So this, if you're asking for the phone number, right? Super, super, super important. This is why I like to use high level and the way that we use it. And if you guys want to go in and try out high level in the way that we use it, you can go to kindlecashflow.com/AMS for automatic marketing system because we give you this template that's laid out already. So the way that you see I have everything here, we give you a template that's laid out, including with all of this stuff in it too. Right? You don't get that when you just go sign up for high level on its own. So we give you the templates and we give you multiple templates actually for different um, case uses. So when you have this here, right, and you're asking for their phone number, they have to go in and check that. And it says, look, I agree to the terms that you have here. I'm not going to go over this right now, but for those of you who have the automatic marketing system, you'll go in, you'll see how we have this set up. All right, so that'll make more sense to you. The other thing that I do here, and this is super important. Who remembers I think it was last week I was talking about where you have to tell people what to do. Like never assume that people know what to do. You guys remember that? Who's on that call? It was the training that I was doing for I think it was the book series Secrets training that I was doing. And if you guys want to see that, I think I'm not even sure what that URL is, but we'll put it in and if we have a description for this video, I'll put it in here if we share this video. But you have to tell people. So what we'll put here is we'll actually have text that says enter your first name here. And then we'll have text that says enter your email address here. So we tested this about 7 years ago, and we still do it. We test it every once in a while too. And when we put that text in there, it increased conversions even more so. So all these little split tests that you're testing, like something like this might increase your conversions, let's say 2, 3%, might increase it 10%, right? You do something like adding your bullet points, that might increase it another 3%. You do something like adding your pick, that might increase it another 2 or 3%, right? That's why we're able to get these conversion rates to our opt-in forms that are 50%, 60%, 70%, where most people, they're coming in and they build out their opt-in form, and initially they're getting conversion rates that are like 1 to 2%, right? Which is okay when you're first starting out, but just know by split testing and continuously, redefining your headline, retesting that thing, and testing your subline headline, you're testing your paragraphs, testing your bullet points, right? Testing the way you have this laid out, testing the background colors. This is something that we've been doing a lot lately, which is testing the background colors. And I find that white works really well, especially if you have white with an image that's layered behind it. Works extremely well. All right. So all of this stuff that you wouldn't even think about, right? So what questions do you guys have on the opt-in form so far? Let me know what questions do you have, and I'm going to go back over here to the questions to see if I could see what you have. All right. And then I'm going to give you um, one of the other things that should go on here. Let's see. Okay, so I don't see any questions. So now the last thing that you want to add on to this is you want to always make sure that you have a disclaimer. All right. So this could be like an FTC disclaimer. Um, and I see a lot of people who don't have this, right? They don't have their disclaimers, they don't have their terms of service, they don't have their privacy policy, all that stuff you want to have on there. And again, when you go in and you get the AMS version of high level through us through kindlecastle.com/AMS, you'll notice that our pages have all of this as placeholders. So like your privacy policy, your disclaimer, your affiliate policy, just all of the stuff that you have to have in place, right? Just to comply and to lawfully comply. So all of these things. So this is the headline. This is the subheadline. This is a paragraph, your bullet points, right? Your form, and then you've got your button down here, right? And then, so some of the things that I found that work really well when it comes to the button is and this is where I see people make big mistakes too. So two things where I see color wise, right, that are super important where I see people make big mistakes. They'll have a headline that's like a red or a pink or a yellow or a green or something that just does not work like black does. Test it. So don't take any of this stuff as me, give you the gospel. Test it, right? Test whatever headline you have right now, color against black, and let a significant number of people go through it, right? Don't just test it with 5, 6, 7, 50 people. Test it with 100 people going through it, right? At least at a minimum. And you'll see that the black headlines, 9 times out of 10, will increase your conversions. The other thing as it relates to color is making sure that all of your other text, you should never have white text on, like you should never have white text. Like you'll see people that might have white text on a black background or a dark background, right? It should always be a light background with black text. It should never be navy blue text or burgundy text. It should never be anything, especially if your goal is to increase your conversions and get as high as possible with your opt-in rate conversions. Your button. So regardless of the color that you primarily have here, I find that having an orange button with white text, I'm not going to write that in, works best, right? And we've tested everything on this. We've tested yellows, we tested across different niches, pinks, and just everything. Yeah, so your CTA button should be orange, right? And I have a code for this too. If you guys want the code, let me know the exact color code. I'm so anal with this because it just works so much that Willie and Des, I could tell that they used to get pissed with me because I'm like, why do you have that color button there? Like that, we know that that's not going to convert. And you don't even have to test it. But now we're so sure with that we know that the exact orange that we're using works, the exact code, right? With white text. So you can have your button. And again, if you guys have if you have the automatic marketing system, we have that button is laid out for you, that color. So if you have that, Christine, I don't know if you all right. Yeah, absolutely. And so Barbara, great point. Excellent point. Excellent point. I'm glad you shared that. So Barbara says the older you get, the harder it is to read colored text, right? So you want it's just hard for anyone. And this is something that coincidentally, a lot of this stuff is transferable, right? So I kind of learned this when I used to advertise a lot in print. So I used to advertise a lot in print newspapers and print um, um, magazines. So when you in print, I mean, I spend thousands of dollars sometimes. So you want to make sure that you get this stuff right when it's in print because it looks ugly and then you're not getting anyone. So I learned that stuff and then I, transferred it over here. So is everyone clear on this right here? Let me know if everyone's clear. All right. Uh, and Christine says she doesn't know it because she's getting older. It's because it, I totally right there with you, Christine. I'm totally right there with you. All right. I see Joanne Fogarty is coming in. Let me know if you guys have any questions on this before I go to the next thing. All right. Before I go to the next thing. So all of this stuff you should be working on big time. All right. And you should be split testing this, like get obsessed with split testing. It becomes, maybe I'm just a weirdo when it comes to this, but it becomes really cool because the way I look at this as well is if I could split test, let's say if I split test the headline, right? And let's say if my page was, for sake of easy math, let's say if it was converting at 50%, right? And then I come in, I split test one headline. I got headline one, which is my control, right? This would be called your control. And then I've got headline two, which is called your variation, right? So headline one might be getting me 50% so far with all of the other elements that I talked about, right? Your bullet points, your subheadline, all of that other stuff. You got a page that's converting at 50%. And this means that if 100 people visit your page, 50 of them are giving you their name and email address, and some of them are giving you their phone number if you have that. Now, your job is to consistently run split tests to try to beat this control, to try to beat it. And the better you get at this, the harder it will be to beat your control, right? So sometimes you'll go through multiple split tests once you get really good at this stuff. So sometimes, like, I'll have a page that's converted at 70%, 75%, which is crazy, right? To warm traffic. And we're trying our best to beat uh, our control. So you'll come in, you'll have another headline, and that'll be your variation. So your control, if you're using like the automatic marketing system, you'll have your two pages, right? So your control, this will be your control, this will be your variation, right? And the cool thing about this is when you're split testing like this, you could say, okay, my control, I'm gonna rewrite it, just I'm gonna redraw it here because this is important here. I want you guys to understand this. So now what you can do is you could say my control, I know it's at 50%, but my variation, I haven't tested it yet, right? So I don't know what it's going to convert at. So do you want to send a lot of traffic to your variation and you don't know if it's going to convert yet or not? Yes or no? What do you think? You want to send, so no. So what we do is with all of our traffic that's coming in, anytime I add a new variation in, like I like to go in and I'll send like maybe 75% of the traffic here and 25% here. All right. So again, in that automatic marketing system, you get to slide and you can kind of say, okay, like when I get for every four people that come in, right, you got to send one here, one here, one here, one here. All right. So that's it. So one here, one here, one here, one here. All right. So make sure that you because again, if this one, let's say if you are testing a new variation and this thing sucks. Let's say if it gets like 2%, well, you don't want to run all of your traffic to this thing without knowing how it's going to convert, right? Especially if you're paying for your traffic. You don't want to do that, right? So you want to make sure that you're minimizing the amount of traffic that goes over to this page until you could see where it's beating out your control, if it ever does beat out your control. All right. So there you go. So let me go in and look at the questions. Yep. So even if you get it wrong, you're learning. So, and that's the point of split testing, right? You're learning, even if you screw the stuff up, right? So orange, Eric, yep. So orange button with white text, right? So I've tested it with black and doesn't work. Tested it dozens of times with black and it does, and across different industries too. Yeah. Right. So, and no, you should be, so Siobhan, you should be split testing right out the gate. So that's a big mistake that I see people make. You should never, ever start an opt-in form without split testing too. Like I get on a team about this all the time because they're like, okay, well, we should just throw it up. I'm like, man, it takes you like all of 60 seconds to do a split test. Why not split test right out the gate? Right? So you should split test right out the gate. If you don't, you're doing it wrong. It takes you literally like, and the first thing that you should be split testing is your headline. It literally can take you 60 seconds to go in and write another headline really quickly. All right. All right. So there you go. So split test right out the gate. This is what I mean. Like sometimes you could go in, you could do this stuff and you don't know because you haven't, right? So be very careful with what you're getting because something like that could cost you a lot of money. And I like making money, so I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna take the freaking 60 seconds. I'm gonna take the 5 minutes. I'm gonna take the hour if it takes me an hour to come up with a headline. And I'm not going to release my opt-in form without a split test. I'm not. As a matter of fact, the rest of the pages in our funnel we're not going to make public without split test. I'm so anal about that I'll go in and I'll look at, if I'm not building out the funnel myself, I'll go in and I'll double check with my team if they built it up, just because people make that mistake of saying, you know what, you don't have to just go in and get it done, which is true, but you want to make sure that you have the split test in place. All right. So there you go. So those are things on your opt-in form that work really well. So when it comes to your email layout, let's talk about your email layout because I do want to be conscious of you guys' time here. We got a lot of stuff, but that's got to be the most important. Your opt-in form is more important than the emails or anything else initially. All right, initially. So your email layout. All right. So your email layout. This is what you're actually sending to your list, right? Not the content, but I'm talking about the layout. So you're going to repeat your subject line. This is something that works really well for people. So say if your subject line in your email is let's see, open, right, hold on. Start reading the world's number one, and hopefully your book should be considered number one to you, even if it's not to the public yet. The world's number one, all right, mystery thriller now, right? So that let's say that's your subject line, right? In your email, the first thing that you want to repeat and do this every single time, unless you have a newsletter where you've got a newsletter and it's like you've got 4 or 5 blog posts or things like that in there, right? That's a whole different animal. But the first thing in your email you should have is a repeat of your subject line. All right. So repeat the subject line here. That's the very first thing in your email. Because, and the reason why is because you have to continue to resell people, right? So the thing that got their attention initially, which is the subject line that they see when they go into Gmail or Yahoo or Hotmail or whatever, you want to make sure that they understand that they're in the right place. So when they first open up your email, the first thing they should see is that subject line repeated, right? And now in your email, let's say if this is a promotional email, you're sending them somewhere, you want to send them over to Amazon, you want to send them to your webinar registration page, you want to send them to your author page, you want to send them to whatever, right? If you're taking them outside of your email, you should hyperlink that subject line that appears at the very top of your email. Increases your click-through rates like crazy, right? Just the simple act of hyperlinking, repeating that subject line and then hyperlinking it. All right. What it does is it confirms to them that they're in the right place. And most people, we use a lot of heat maps sometimes. And you'll see that people will actually go in and they'll click on this. And when you start to simply do this, you'll see your click-through rates increase as well. So all of the stuff you guys should be measuring. Again, never just guess, right? Never just assume. Measure every single thing. You should set a goal for your opt-ins. I talked about this last week as well, right? So our goal every single day is to get 1,000 opt-ins, 1,000 people, 1,000 new people on our list. So I have a spreadsheet that comes to me first thing in the morning, and I can look at that and I can kind of see where we were at last night. We were at or yesterday, the day before, right? And now, because if I know that we're on target, I'm good. If I know if I'm not on target, I could do things that day that can help me to get closer to our target. Right. So set these parameters for yourself, set these goals for yourself. It might be 5 new people on your list a day. It might be 10 new people on your list a day. Right. Um, so this right here. The next thing is in your layout, right? So repeating your subject line, right? The next thing is you split test things like you can have countdown timers. This is working really good for us. And this is working so good right now that I'm using it on everything. So I'm using it for our Amazon books. I'm using it for ads that we run to both fiction and nonfiction. I'm using it for our webinars, our trainings, our seminars, having a countdown timer. And this is something where in the AMS, automatic marketing system over at kindlecastle.com/AMS, you can go and you can include countdown timers. This helps to increase your click-through rate as well. So click-through rate meaning the number of people that open your email and actually click onto a link in there. All right. So speaking of links, you shouldn't have a bunch of links in your email. Right. So try to minimize your links to no more than 4. So four links. Now you'll see where sometimes we'll have more than four links. Sometimes I'm a little bit rebellious with it. Hell, sometimes I'll have 40 links in there, right? But it's not more than it's I don't do that more than I don't. All right. So more than four links is not good. All right. So four links, no emojis. Emojis kill your deliverability rate. And again, don't take this as gospel because I'm saying it, test it, right? Go use the automatic marketing system. For those of you that have Go High Level accounts under me, test it. You should be split testing, just like with your opt-in forms, you should be split testing almost every email that you send out, at least 50% of your emails that you send out, right? Because if not, you just don't want the results. Like if you're not split testing, you just don't want results. There's no better way of putting it. Right. So split test your email. Split test one where you've got emojis, you've got two, three, four, five emojis, however many you want. And then split test one where it's just bland, you have no emojis in it. You'll see that the one that has no emojis in it gets a higher open rate, and then in turn gets a higher click-through rate. So more people clicking on your links. All right. So split test all of this stuff. Split test a countdown timer in one versus no countdown timer. Four to one link in one versus more than four links in one. All of the stuff you should be split testing. All right. The other thing that does not work really well, and I see a lot of people that use this often, are images in their emails, unless it's a countdown timer image. But images in their emails typically kill your deliverability rate. Now I know, and again, this is the ego thing, right? This is something where we want to put our cover in there for our course or our logo or whatever it might be, but they kill your deliverability rate. Split test that. So having images in one email versus no images, right? So images don't work well. The other thing that split test is your sending time and your days. So keeping track of what days and times tend to work best for you. So we'll see where it's like the times that work really good for us, East Coast time, these are our East Coast times, are 7 a.m. And I have an entire list of these things. If you guys are part of AMS, I'll give you this list of them. But we'll see where like 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. work really well. 10 a.m. works well, right? 12 noon Eastern time works well. I see again where 7 to 8 at night works well. All right. So we tested these sending times as well. Test your days, right? That work best for you as well. All right. When you're sending out emails, also, just like with your opt-in forms, your emails always need to have, I don't know if you guys could see that, but disclaimer. All right. So you should always have a disclaimer when you're sending emails out. And every single email, doesn't matter what you're selling, every single email you should have in there, especially if you're selling something. All right. The other thing is, speaking of split testing, when you're split testing, here's a way to increase your open rates as well. If you want something basic to split test when it comes to your actual emails, split test your subject lines. So in the AMS, you can split test up to 6 subject lines. Now you could also split test your body as well, but that comes secondary to this. So split test 6 different subject lines. So remember when I said that emojis don't work in the body of your email? But guess what? They work in your subject lines. They actually decrease deliverability and in turn decrease open rates when used in the body. But we found where they increase open rates when they're in the subject line, right? So they increase open rates when they're in subject line. So again, split test this, right? So split test up to 6 subject lines, have it go out for good. The duration of your split test with AMS can range from 30 minutes to, I think it's 2 hours, no, 30 minutes to 1 hour to 2 hours to 4 hours to 8 hours and 12 hours. So I like to at least split test as much as possible. And what I'm doing is I'll often send, so when I'm split testing, and again, you can divide the traffic. So I'll often send out like 40% of the traffic to the 6 different variables that I'm split testing. And then once it's determined the winner, and I'm determining the winners not by opens, but by clicks, right? Especially if I'm selling something. So not by opens, because I just don't want vanity numbers. So be very careful with this. This is another thing that people will fool you on. It's just like Facebook advertising. People will tell you, well, We can get you a gazillion leads. We can get you a gazillion clicks. But I'm like, I don't forget the leads. Like, how many people, how many customers can you actually get me? Right. So be very careful when people just try to sell you on vanity numbers. Right. So when you're split testing, you want to split test for clicks, right? Not just opens, clicks. So I'm split testing six different subject lines. I'm sending 60% of the traffic to the split test, and then the other 60% is going to go to the headline winner. All right. If you're split testing your body, which you should do, after you get better at split testing subject lines, then you do the same thing, right? Split test six different body variations with ChatGPT. It's very easy to come up with your email content. That should no longer be an excuse for no anyone, not at all. I'm on Gemini last night, and I'm just walking around the house, and I'm talking to Gemini, and I'm like, I'll give you an example. I'm talking to Gemini, and I'm like, hey, Gemini. This stuff again, once you start to overthink it and you procrastinate a lot, it starts to get in your head. So, hey Gemini, can you hear me? No, I was nope. Hold on. Give me 3 seconds before you answer, okay? But what I'm teaching a class right now, and I'm sharing with the attendees how easy it is to come up with email subject lines. I'm sharing with them how easy it is to come up with body content for their emails, whether it's just informational content, sales content, good vibe content, whatever it is. If I'm looking to sell a romance novel, it's a brand new romance novel, it's a sci-fi romance novel. Can you give me six email subject lines real quick without even knowing what the book is about, because I don't want to go into that detail right now for sake of time. All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. So, do you guys see how easy it is to come up with content? All right. So, Siobhan, if you could do me a favor, stop putting different things in the chat box, because I think you're confusing people. We went through the form already. All right. So you're confusing people, Siobhan, with some of the stuff that you're putting in there. It's contradicting what I'm talking about. Right. So Ann Harris, the form, great question. So the form is what you use, right? You're sending traffic to that form. So that's what I was saying. This would have to be a totally different class on traffic. So your form is what people see when you're running your Amazon ads or your Facebook ads, or you've got maybe a blog post and you're sending people over to your form, all right? So this is for people, your form is for people that don't yet, are not yet on your list with the format. All right, so let me know if that makes sense. So this is for people that are not yet on your list. All right. Oh, you guys couldn't hear Gemini's answers. All right. Yes, Barbara, it does. So that's the beautiful part about it. So Gemini takes all of that and it will put it into a text. Let's see. It will actually put it into a text format. So can you guys see that? Let me know if it's probably a little bit blurry. But yes. All right. All right. Let me see. So what I want to do is you guys have a ton of great questions. I want to answer some of these. All right. But before I do, really quickly, I just want to remind you, measure everything. All right. And I'm going to answer every single question. So write down your questions, or put them, not write them down, but put them into the chat, and I'm going to answer every single one. But before I do, here, I want to cover these really quickly, and then we're going to close out this thing. Test. Always test everything. Test your opt-in forms. Once you build it out, go in and test it with uh, two or three different email addresses. We all have multiple email addresses, right? So you go in and opt in yourself. Make sure you test it. All right. Um, Make sure you test the links in your emails. So go in and send your emails to yourself and test your opt-in forms, right? Test your emails. Okay, so test that stuff as well. Measure everything. This is a little bit more advanced than measuring everything, but it will get you to where you want to be quicker than anything else. All right. So when I say measure everything, measure your opt-in conversion rates, right? How many people are actually opting into your pages so that you could split test and increase those numbers. Measure the number of new leads that you're getting every day. All right. So measure all of that stuff, and you can do this with the AMS. Segment your list. So when someone comes in and they opt in, you should be tagging that person based on what opt-in form, especially once you have multiple opt-in forms. So when they come in, if they opt in, let's say if you're publishing both romance and you're publishing personal development. Someone comes in and they opt in here, they fill out your form, you got the headline and all this other stuff. You should immediately tag them, go into the automatic marketing system and tag them as opted into romance or whatever the title of your romance book is or the prequel that they got here, right? Tag them in a way that is easy for you to identify later in the future. Someone comes over here to your personal development form and they opt in, tag that person as well. Because then you can now segment them and you're not broadcasting and blasting your emails out to everyone. You're sending emails out to people that are interested in romance, right? To the folks that have that romance tag and people that are interested in personal development, you're sending those emails out to them, right? So that's it. All right, now I want to get to some of the questions. Like, there's so much more that I can talk about on this stuff. This is stuff that I really enjoy, and I hate seeing people get the wrong information. I hate seeing people do this the wrong way, and I also don't like people taking longer on this because this could really move the needle for you. So, do you have a simple disclaimer to share, please? Isabel, are you? I think you are part of the automatic marketing system because we do have a disclaimer there. If not, guess what? You can also go in and you can get one from ChatGPT or from Gemini. You can go in, you can say, hey, look, give me a disclaimer to use in the bottom, give me an FTC disclaimer to use in the bottom of my emails. All right. And it'll give you one. And if you want it to be a little bit more detailed, you just simply say, go in and make this a little bit more detailed. You can make it concise if you want. Here's something that many people don't know. If you use AI in any form to create your content, let's say your email content, you also have to include that in your disclaimer. All right. And it could be as simple as a sentence. Parts of this content was created with AI. All right. Brian Keller is asking, how do I get into AMS? So very cool. So Brian, you can go over to kindlecashflow.com/AMS. You get to try it out for free for 30 days. And then after that, of course, after the 30 days, then there's a charge. There's three different levels, Brian. I'm not going to give you the price. I'm not going to share the prices on this video because here's the reason why. At some point, when we get around to it, we're going to increase the price. And I don't want to save a lower price on this video, and then someone watches this video a week from now or a month from now or whenever, and then now it's a higher price. Does that make sense? So if you go over to kindlecashflow.com/AMS, you'll see the three different layers that we have, the three different options that we have. And then if you click the button for whichever option you're after, then you'll see the pricing there. But I don't want to mention it here because again, it's going to increase and I don't want to mention a lower price here, and then people get to bill later and they see and they're like, he increased the price. So Brenda Clark is asking, do you use the opt-in format for your lead magnet? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So that opt-in format is definitely for your lead magnet, and your lead magnet could be anything, Brenda. All right. This lead magnet, people, and that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that, Brenda, because here's something that I want to share. Like, don't overcomplicate what the lead magnet could be, right? It could be your free prequel. It could be a free training with you. It could be a free book that you have, right? It could be a nonfiction book. It could be a fiction book. It could be an audio book, right? So you could have one of your books and you could say, hey, here's the audio version of this book. You can use 11 Labs to go in and turn it into an audio, and now you make that available, right? It could be just the chance for them to opt in to see what's on the sales page. We do that a lot, right? So sometimes we don't even have a lead magnet. It's just look, opt in if you want to see what's on the next page, what's inside. All right. So that Christina's saying your form is what you put your landing page in, or vice versa. Yeah. So when I say form, so your landing page is basically this. Those words are synonymous. Good question, Christine. So your opt-in form, your registration page, your landing page, all three of those phrases are interchangeable. Opt-in form, landing page, registration page. Then I'm glad that you asked that question because that's what trips a lot of people up because they hear all of these different names, which, you know, they just come about and people kind of get confused. I know that confused me for a long time. I'm like, okay, well, what is the registration page versus the opt-in versus the landing page, right? So, yes. Does Gemini put text into, I think I covered that one. Yes. All right. Have to have images if linking to promos or auto swaps. Yes. All right. So yeah, if you have to, then yeah, you have to. I mean, there's no way around it. How long should we give them on the countdown time? Oh, that's the one I wanted to get to, Barbara. So how she's asking how long should we give them on the countdown timer? By the way, countdown timers work really well here as well. The thing about countdown timers is you have to be 100% truthful and transparent. So let's say if I have a countdown timer on my opt-in form, my landing page, my registration page here, and it's saying you have up until Friday to get this free prequel, Friday at midnight, then I have to be truthful in that, right? So my countdown timer would go until Friday midnight. And then once Friday midnight comes, then I have to no longer let any more people get that. So be very careful with how you use your countdown timers because you could use them for special offers, you could use them for special giveaways, special lead magnets if you wanted to, or in your emails, which is where I really like to use them, right? It could be something like this past weekend. Some of you guys missed out on the three different trainings that we were giving away, right? And I had a countdown timer and I said, look, this is going to be the last time you're going to be able to see all of these three trainings at once on the same day. And that countdown timer counted down until midnight last night. And once it counted down, that was it, right? So great question, Barbara. What else do we have? Next week, talk about how to start an email list, best practices to go over email list fast. Yeah, we could absolutely do that, Eric. So that's a great topic because there's a lot of ways to do that. And for the AMS, Wendy Bolton was saying, what was your link? So yeah, it's that. Wendy, thank you for putting that in there. So it's kindlecashflow.com/AMS. So AMS is short for automatic marketing system. So kindlecashflow.com/AMS. All right. Can we give it an extension of time if it's very successful? Yes, you could do that, but you have to also mention that as well. So you go in and you could say when you're creating like an email, this is what works really well. You could, even if it's not an email, you could put this on your opt-in form. You could go in and say, look, this offer works so well. We had so many people that got value out of this thing, and we had so many people that kind of missed out on it that we're going in and we're extending it just to be fair to everyone. Does that make sense? So you could definitely go in and do that. But now what you're doing is you're also telling a story, all right? You're telling a story, all right? Where do I find the training on AMS, Joanne? Let me ask Des because she had put these trainings together. Oh, you know what it's going to be? It's going to be in your members area. So when you log in, you'll see the trainings. But I'm going to ask her. Let me make a note about that as well because we have a ton of different trainings that are in there. Trainings that show you how to build out your opt-in forms, trainings that show you how to build out just different things there. So good question, Joanne. What else do we have? How do I get into AMS? I think I covered that. So kindlecashflow.com/AMS. I'll actually put the link in the chat box right here. I think Wendy was trying to put it in there, but she didn't have the end of it. So I'll put it in here. So kindlecashflow.com/AMS. I think most of you guys are in AMS. I know a lot of the names I'm seeing are in there. Cynthia, thank you, Cynthia. And thanks for the card again, Cynthia. This was really cool. So I do appreciate you. I was sharing it. And Cynthia's got her picture on here. Look at that. All right. So thank you for that, Cynthia. Is there a limit on number of contacts for the three levels? No, there's not. No, there's not. All right. I've used almost every major system that you can think of out there, from like active campaign to keep to I mean just everything to I mean if you name some of them, I've used them over the years, right? This is how long I've been doing this stuff. And I really like the scalability with the automatic marketing system. I really like how you can go in and you can scale with this thing. Right. Mandy says, great session. Thank you. Where do I find the training? Joanna just covered that one. Um, I feel like I'm missing some because I see a lot of questions that are coming in. So let me scroll up and then I'm gonna come back down to the bottom. Let's see. Yeah, you guys actually have to. Siobhan put in a good po point. She says, you actually have to do the work here. So this stuff, right? I'm giving you, I mean, well over a decade of what works and what doesn't work, and you actually have to do the work though, right? So don't take this, and I could easily turn this into a course and sell it. Um, right. So let me go back to the bottom because I saw more questions coming in. Right. Thank you, Robert. Good info. And Robert, I will get back to you today. Thank you, Ty. You took muddy waters and made it clear. Thank you, Christine. I think that was Christine. Thank you. Does Gemini put text into what they're saying? Yes, it's on screen as well, 100%. Right. I like to use Gemini. Well, I like to use Gemini when I'm walking on the trail. I like to use Gemini sometimes when I'm at the gym. You're not supposed to be talking at the gym, so sometimes I'm whispering to Gemini. I like to use Gemini sometimes as I'm laying down. I get these ideas. Sometimes I'm in the shower. And my wife thinks I'm nuts because I have my phone with me in the shower, but that's when the best ideas. And I'm like, hey, Gemini, how about this? And how about if we do this? And how about that? Right? I like to see these training videos for AMS, please. I haven't found access to them or anything. All right. Yeah. So absolutely. So I think that was Sue. So Sue, yeah. Remember that number. Right. And I think I got sweet nothings to Gemini. Yeah, absolutely. Do you like Gemini better than ChatGPT? Great question. So if I'm speaking to it now, look, I'll speak to both. I'll use the audio version for both. Let me see if I can I don't want to disconnect, but let me see. Disconnect from my audio. But I'll use both. I just like the voices on Gemini, to be honest with you. Can you guys still hear me? Let me know. Give me a yes if you can still hear me. I like to be able you can customize the voices on all of this stuff for the most part. But I like the voices on oh, it says I just got really quiet. How about now? Is it still that way? Let me see. Is it still really quiet? Let me know. How about now? Oh, it is. Okay, that's really weird. Too quiet. Okay. Let- how about now? Is it still quiet? Getting a bit better. Okay, so quiet, but I can hear you. All right, so let me put the earpods back on. I think that's what it is. All right, so I wanted to kind of share with you guys how, but no, the go. Um, I like them both actually. I'm kind of bored, I've been really trying out everything as it comes like Grok, all right, ChatGPT, Notepad, just everything. So all of it, Perplexity, just everything that's out there, you name it. All right. So again, so hopefully you guys got value out of this. Go in, grab the automatic marketing system. For those, the few of you that are not in it, I know there's a lot of people that are already in it. And if you are in it, take advantage of the stuff, right? Like we give you all the templates. We give you not only do we give you the opt-in form templates, right? The pages, we give you several different variations of them. So regardless of what you're selling or what you want to do with it, like if you have a course or if you have a book, or if you have a book series, right? We give you different opt-in forms for that. If you have a fiction book, a nonfiction book, if you're selling a webinar training, whatever it is, right? So we'll give you all of that stuff in there. kindlecashflow.com/AMS. All right, guys, stay well. Make this week your best week, all right? Your best and your greatest is yet to come. All right. Do me one favor, please, if you can, if you're still here. All right, we haven't asked this in a long time, but there's a lot of people. I wanted to do this because again, there's a lot of people that are in the community that need to see this training, but did not see it. So if you can go into any of the Facebook groups, or if you're watching this on social media, just comment on what your biggest takeaway was, what your aha was. If you suggest this training to other people, because people really need to see this. All right. Right. So please, please, please. Yes, Christine, you definitely could. Right. You could use everything I'm talking about, you could do with other platforms. I'm just a little bit more biased when it comes to the AMS just because we see such great results with it. And I've tried a lot of them, including ConvertKit. I still actually have a couple of ConvertKit accounts that I need to cancel out. Right. So go into the Facebook group. Let me know what your biggest takeaway was. Let me know what your thoughts on this training were. Let me know if you got some clarity. Um, and if you have questions that we didn't answer, there's going to be some questions that come up later on. Post it as you're driving around later on, or as you're in your house, you're doing some things, or as you're at work. There's going to be some questions. So this is not ended. This session has not ended. Post them in the Facebook group, or if we happen to share this on social media somewhere, post your questions in the comments. All right. And I'll make sure to go in and answer them. Stay well. All right. Love you guys. Bye bye.